Sumerian tablets are probably one of the oldest form of written record that we have. They've been translated, and they tell exciting stories about how gods intermingled with human beings and actually had a hand in the creation of human beings.
Most people walk past the small brown rectangle in the Philadelphia Museum without looking. It looks like a lump of mud, but it carries a message from 17 centuries before the modern era. Scholars tried to read it for years, but the cracks were too deep.
Ancient inscription on a piece of clay comes to light in perfect condition. So this tablet, you can easily see that it's not complete. There's stuff missing here, there's stuff missing there, and it also looks like elephants have danced a polka over the surface.
Now, a quantum system has finally solved the puzzle. The tablet speaks of a hidden council and a decision that was final. The terrifying part is that this decision was made without anyone on Earth knowing. Basically, the story of humanity has a secret chapter that just opened. Hands down, this is wild. Silicon power solves history. A small brown tablet sits in a glass case in Philadelphia, and most people walk past it without even slowing down. It looks like a rough rectangle of baked mud with broken edges and a surface crowded with tiny wedge marks in neat rows. The label says it comes from the ancient city of Nippur in southern Iraq and belongs to the Babylonian section of the museum. What survives is only the lower part of a much larger piece written on both sides. The preserved section carries 6 slim columns of text, with 3 on each face. Each column holds roughly between 10 and 15 lines. Scholars estimate that the complete tablet once held around 260 lines of writing. The clay is hard and the surface is worn in patches with cracks cutting through some of the most crowded lines. It is small enough to rest in one hand, measuring about 5 inches long, 4 inches wide, and less than 1 inch thick. But every side is packed with wedges. This unimpressive lump carries one of the longest continuous Sumerian stories that has ever been found. For many decades, this tablet lay in storage trays and study rooms as just one more object from one more dig. While the warning that it holds sat quietly locked inside the wedges, the world moved on. To understand how that happened, everything has to roll back to Nippur itself. Nippur was never the political capital of the land, but for the ancient people, it was the holy city. It was the home of the great temple complex called the Eker. In the late 19th century, a team from Pennsylvania sent the first American group to the region. Workers and experts cut into huge mounds of sun-baked brick under the heat of the plains. Over roughly 12 years of digging, they mapped the religious center with its temple and tall tower. They explored the business area and opened up a spot that became famous as the Scribal Quarter. In house after house, the teams found stacks of clay tablets. Some were simple business notes or contracts. Others held songs, myths, and schoolwork. Reports from the dig described thousands of tablets pulled from those rooms. They were still lying where ancient students and professional writers had left them. Experts later compared that area to a national library buried under its own ruins. Among the many crates of tablets that left for Philadelphia was one broken piece. At the time it was packed and shipped, it was just another line on a list. What the group had actually sent home was a clay tablet from the old Babylonian period. It was written sometime around the 17th century before the Common Era. The language of the text is Sumerian, even though people had already stopped speaking it every day by then. Writers in that age treated the language as a special skill. They copied older religious works as part of their training. Later studies of schoolhouses show that large tablets like this were usually written by high-level students or experts. That hints that the content was considered serious and important in its own time. The way the text is written adds to the challenge. The script is made of small wedge-shaped marks pressed into damp clay with a reed tool. Each sign is a pattern of wedges at different angles. A single sign can stand for a whole word or a part of a word. Even in its final form, the script uses hundreds of different signs. Reading any long text is slow work. Reading a damaged one forces a person to guess. The physical state of this tablet makes those choices even harder because big chunks are missing from the top and one side. Cracks run down through columns of text and cut signs in half. In some rows, the marks are so shallow that they almost fade into the clay. This means the story cannot be put back together from this single object alone. Only by using modern tools like quantum-level systems can experts bring out faint marks. These systems help figure out signs that are too tightly packed for a human eye. Things get even crazier when those marks finally start to tell a coherent story. While the computer worked through the cracks, a secret meeting from thousands of years ago began to take shape. Divine plans. Caught whispering. Language experts first spread out copies of different fragments on their desks. They treated these pieces like parts of one long song. Wherever the wording matched, they locked the lines together and slowly a single story began to appear. The opening of the story is gone on the main tablet, but the missing lines can be sketched from what is left on other pieces. The lost beginning seems to have talked about how humans and animals first came into being. In that stage, people wandered and moved with their herds. They did not yet have steady homes, city walls, or shrines. Life was restless and loosely organized. The gods had to live with noisy and unstable human beings who were not yet doing proper work. The first clear speech belongs to a goddess called Nippur. She is a birth goddess who looks after humans. She complains that people drift from place to place and that there is no lasting order. She wants humans to settle down and build cities. She wants them to raise temples where daily gifts can be made. Her speech is not just about comfort. It is about creating a world where the gods receive regular care. After this plan is set, the story moves into a list of the very first cities. It names Eridu as the first city and says it was placed under the care of a god. Then it names 4 other towns. Each has its own ruler and special god. These are not random towns. In the ancient way of thinking, this list is a sacred map. It shows where true leadership and proper worship first started on Earth. It links each city to a specific guardian in the sky. The text then breaks again for several dozen lines. It seems that leadership moves from city to city. Rulers rise and fall and human life becomes busier and more crowded. It is at this point that the story shifts into its darkest turn. A group of high gods holds a secret meeting. The main tablet does not list every reason, but the flavor is simple and brutal. The humans were making too much noise and becoming hard to manage. The decision was reached far above the human world. No one on Earth was invited to the meeting. No king heard the talk. No city received a message from an official. In the story, regular people keep living their lives close to the rivers. They have no idea that the leaders of the divine world have already signed a death order. Only one god refuses to accept this. He is linked with fresh water and clever plans. He decides to bend the rules without openly breaking them. This god whispers through a wall to a man sitting on the other side. This key detail can shock those who think the gods were always direct. The warning tells the man that a great storm is coming to wipe out the land. The decision is final and cannot be stopped. Basically, the human world was about to be turned off like a light. Boat built for survival. The human who matters most at this point is a man named Zusudra. The text calls him a king and a priest, which is an important double role. As a king, he has the power to act. As a priest, he is supposed to listen closely to the gods. In some lines, he is also called humble and obedient. This makes him the kind of person a god might trust with a secret. The god never walks up to him to speak face to face. Instead, the god speaks to a wall near where the man is sitting. He talks loudly enough that the human can pick up every line. This way, the god can say he never told the man directly. The warning itself is sharp. A great flood is coming that will sweep over the land and erase almost all human life. Zusudra is told to build a huge boat. It must be big enough to hold himself, his family, and living creatures. The tablet does not keep the full technical plan. The lines that gave the exact size are gone. But it is very clear that the boat is not a small fishing craft. It is a large special vessel built for one purpose. It has to ride out what no normal house or town can survive. The story does not waste time on side scenes. Once the boat is built and loaded, the flood comes. Here the tablet becomes very clear and scary. It speaks of a terrible storm that lasts for 7 days and 7 nights. All the evil winds gather into one force. The water sweeps over the cities and the big boat is tossed about on the great waves. Then the storm breaks. The text says that the sun god appears and spreads light over the sky. At that moment, the man opens a window in the boat. For the first time in many days, fresh light and air pour in. He fills with thanks and bows low before the sun. When the boat comes to rest and it is safe to step down, he prepares a huge gift of sheep and oxen. In the closing part of the story, the focus shifts to the high gods again. Zusudra appears in front of the sky god. The text says they give him eternal breath for saving the animals and the seed of mankind. He is moved to a distant land of light where the sun rises. This means the story does not end with him stepping back into normal life. He is given a special kind of life that ordinary people do not get. The terrifying detail that remains is the coldness of the divine council. They decided to end everything because of noise. It shows how fragile the ancient writers thought human life really was. Even the greatest kings learned that a single mistake could turn a golden city into a pile of dust. Ghost cities mourn forever. Ancient writers left long poems about cities smashed to the ground. Two of the strongest examples are a song about the ruin of the city of Ur and a story about a curse. The path to the Song of Ur starts with stray tablets in different places. Only when experts put more than 20 fragments together did a long text start to appear. One of the best copies is a hand-sized tablet with rounded edges. It looks like a tired brown brick, but every line is loaded with sadness. The speaker for most of the poem is a goddess who is the wife of the moon god. She talks as if she is standing inside her own city while it is being judged. She begs the highest gods not to let the disaster fall. She reminds them of the songs and the loyalty of her people. But the poem makes it clear that her words do not work. The great storm still comes. When she speaks again, she is walking through ruins. Temples that once held statues are smashed and empty. Streets that were once packed with traders are silent. Houses stand open with no one inside. Fields that once gave grain are now dry and cracked. The people are dead or taken away as prisoners. In the background sits a real event where an empire fell. The poem treats that fall as the end of a whole world. Copies of this song show up on tablets long after the city fell. Students in school had to copy this text as a kind of final exam. That means young writers sat and scratched out the tears of a goddess over and over. Every copy turned the fall of one city into a lesson for others. Another story shows what happens when a king becomes too proud. This king was a great warrior, but he made a terrible choice. Instead of waiting for a message from the gods, he attacked a holy temple. That one act turned his luck. The gods called down mountain people who move like packs of animals. Under their raids, normal life broke apart. Trade boats stopped moving. Messengers no longer traveled the roads. One famous part of the story says that prices climbed so high that a single lamb could buy only a tiny bit of grain. Fields that once gave rich food now grew only weeds called the Reed of Tears. The city that was once the center of the world became a place people avoided. Did the ancient Sumerians know something about the end of the world that we are only just beginning to understand? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe for more mysteries.